Let's actually take this forward with our next guest. We have with us Balaji Subramaniam, Vice President at IIFL Securities. Balaji, I want to pick up on that last part first. We'll come to, P&L impact and etc. later, if at all. But the issue here is whether Starlink, whenever it comes in India, how much will it have to pay for that spectrum? Like our colleague Ashmit was telling us, that it will probably be allotted. There's going to be no bidding war as such. It'll be allotted spectrum, Starlink pays, and then they onward tie up with Jio and Bharti to roll out this network. Ashmit was making the point that if it's subsidized to the extent of, to boost rural connectivity, etc., if the government decides to be a little charitable, then could it start competing with terrestrial networks at all? I mean, how should we understand this development?
Hi, good morning. Thanks for having me on the show. So my reading of this situation is that we have to see what exactly is the pricing modality that TRAI comes out with, and whether there are any revisions to that based on incorporation of feedback by DOT, etc. But my sense is that these would be the satellite services would be used to extend coverage into areas where currently as in there are challenges in terms of getting those areas connected through terrestrial means, either through mobile or through FTTH. So my reading is that at least in the foreseeable future, I don't see any risk of disruption or cannibalization to terrestrial services from satellite, simply because, one, there are multiple technological challenges that need to be addressed. Some of them are being addressed, credit to the team at Starlink. And on the other hand, you also have affordability challenges, especially in a country like India, where you have mobile ARPU, which is less than $3, and you have unlimited fixed broadband plans starting at less than $5, which is not the case with many of the other markets, including the African markets where Starlink is present right now. So
what's the pricing? Balaji, just a second, and that's why it's really important to understand how this works. What is the pricing at which Starlink operates in some of the international markets? You mentioned they're in Africa. I mean, that'll be a great sort of example for us to look at, because the whole point of getting them in to boost rural connectivity, to power up schools, etc., it'll have to come at an affordable price. I mean, rural schools cannot afford to pay top dollar. So how much is the pricing for Starlink services internationally, just to get a sense?
So it varies across markets. So in developed markets like US, Starlink plans start at $80 per month. So, that is clearly quite expensive, especially from an Indian standpoint. Even in markets like Kenya, which is, as per my knowledge, the market where Starlink offerings are priced the lowest, there you have plans starting at $10 per month. And that offers 50 GB per month limited data. So it is not like India, where you have Jio and Bharti offering unlimited fixed line plans starting at $399 or $499 per month, depending on which company you are looking at. So, of course, the speed, there are speed considerations, but at least the data allowance is unlimited. While even in a market like Kenya, the $10 plan of Starlink comes with a 50 GB monthly data allowance. So I think, if Starlink has to match someone like a Jio in terms of terrestrial pricing in India, that is going to be a stiff ask.
So Balaji, a couple of questions. What could be the revenue opportunity? Because we know that the underserved region in India, underserved population in India is about 30 to 40%. So if we have to provide connectivity to them, what could be the total addressable market, which is now going to be shared between all these? And what about the timeline in terms of revenue accretion?
So the way I think it would work is with both these telcos now, tying up with Starlink. For starters, what Starlink will be getting is they will be getting the distribution reach of both Airtel and Jio, while each of them has more than 1 million retail outlets, at least in the areas where it makes sense for these companies to sell Starlink's offerings. At least those retail outlets will act as distribution channels for Starlink. So even though you talked about the geographical coverage number, let us not forget that both Jio and Bharti have north of 95-96% population coverage. So geographical coverage may be lower, but population coverage is also equally important, or rather more important in my view. My sense is that especially in places like, say, jungles or deserts, or even in the seas, where it is very difficult to have a proper terrestrial infrastructure, that is where Starlink's offerings will come in handy. So if you're a Jio or an Airtel subscriber who is roaming on to some of these areas, there you will get seamless coverage. As far as timelines are concerned, it is very difficult because we are still in very early days. Starlink is yet to receive regulatory approvals, including license, spectrum. So we don't know how long it will take by which all these are in place. And even once that all that falls in place, I think it will be more of a gradual process. It will also obviously depend on what is the pricing of both the Starlink terminal and the services. So there are multiple moving parts here, and we are still in very early days.
There's also a price associated with the device,
Yes.
the terminal. So can you tell us how expensive that is? And is it possible to summarize to say that B2C, that the regular consumers like you and me are not going to use Starlink services, even if we go to a remote location, but it's going to be an enterprise opportunity? Corporates in these regions where there is poor connectivity right now are likely to take on this service, and therefore they will be okay to pay 3x, 4x more in terms of pricing.
So that is right. So you have, Starlink device that is sold at $350 in a market like Kenya. I think the US it's even higher. So these are pretty large sums for a retail customer, especially in India. Even for a high-income postpaid customer, unless he's a sailing enthusiast or he has some hobbies which takes him to the seas very frequently. I don't see anyone spending this kind of money, especially for having coverage in which may be of use to him very infrequently. So I think that is something which is very clear. In the enterprise space, there may be that is where probably the more action could be, where enterprises would like to have access to network all the time, and they don't mind paying a bit of premium as long as the security aspects and all are taken care of. So that
Balaji,
is how I see it.
So Balaji, 30 seconds market, we're hitting market opening. Basically, is this a potential threat averted for Jio and for Bharti? What is the net takeaway? Is it absolutely neutral? Is it positive because now there is no overhang of competing with Elon Musk? What's the final take?
So in the near term, it is going to be neutral. And I think the very fact that they are tying up means that, at least some investors had a worry that this is going to be a disruption. At least, that disruption risk kind of, that overhang goes away, because even though the telcos were telling that there is no risk of disruption, but, I think actions speak a lot louder than words.
Right, thank you very much for making sense of this big development for us. We'll watch out for how telecom stocks open up.